Alright, hey guys, so it's been a while since my last video. I just really haven't, well, to be honest, I just didn't make a video. I should have. I took way too long for it. But yeah, I'm gonna just do another tutorial today on how I made the beat that I made. So, starting off with this one, what I did for this one is I recorded all of this with my microphone. And it's a really pretty bland sound just from the microphone. But this might have actually been my computer microphone, not the one that you're hearing me speak through now. But yeah, so it has these pretty bland guitar sounds. Here, I'll play them out for you. So this is the first one. This is the one that the whole track revolves around. All right, and then it keeps going like that for a little bit. So I needed to add a little bit of color to all of that. So hold on, let me just get this looped. All right, so the first thing that I did was, what was that? First thing that I did was add an EQ. So if you look at this EQ, I cut some of the lows. Basically, I just boosted the frequencies that I wanted and got rid of the other frequencies. The reason that I had to put an EQ on so early into this is because it was recorded in a room and it had lots of ambience. So some of that I needed to get rid of. Some of it sounded good, like at 4 kilohertz. That sounded pretty good. So I boosted that a little bit. But yeah, so here's what it sounds like with the EQ on. You can see how it cut out some of that low end. Alright, so yeah, that's that. Next one, I added some reverb. You could look in the settings. Yeah, it's got a bit of decay time. Yeah, pretty basic reverb. Then it sounds like this. So just kind of adding that space in that the EQ may have taken out, but it sounds better. So then there's a stereo tools thing that I have. So let me look at this. The reason that I put this on here was so that I could get the delay. So this was recorded in, I think this was recorded in mono. Yeah, mono, because it's just a mono microphone. So this was recorded in mono, but I wanted some, stereo to it. So I added just a little bit of delay. So now you're going to hear it in a little bit more of a stereo image. You see how it's slightly different now, and it has a bit of a stereo image to it. That's what that did for it. So I'm trying to move a little bit quickly because there's a lot of things that I did here. But the next thing, I added some vintage delay. I use this in quite a few beats. I don't know if I've used it in any ones that I've done tutorials on yet, but I'll get around to it. But so basically this just can add a delay that's different in the right ear from the left ear, which sounds pretty cool. So this is what it sounds like now. You hear that little bounce back, kind of. So that's what that's doing. All right, next up, we have some amplifiers, and I'm pretty sure all this did was make it louder. So I'll just put on both of them at the same time. So now you can hear kind of that air in it. I still left that in the final recording. Like, I thought the air sounded pretty good. And then just to give it a little bit of, movement, I added a compressor. Cut it pretty low, you can see. So this is what it sounds like with the compressor. It also kind of has a cool effect where when you put a compressor on something with noise, the noise kind of bounces in and out. So that is a pretty cool sound to it. Next thing that gets introduced is just a hi-hat. Pretty basic. I was using like some J Dilla drum kit that I found on Reddit. Just like that. And I believe I just added like some reverb. And what is this? Oh, okay. I just add reverb and delay. So again, you're going to hear the stereo effects a little bit more dramatic than the on the first one. So, yeah. All right. So you can hear how that's stereo and stuff, because I think I use head on a lot of stuff, so it's good to explain that. All right, the next thing is just this little thing that I played over it because I recorded this in Audacity, and I had other stuff that I could record over it. So there's this. it's very quiet. And it was very quiet in the recording too. So you can look at the line over there. It's just pretty much completely flat. So then I added lo-fi, which kind of distorts it a little bit and turns it up quite a bit. Then I added reverb. I'm going to just put on both of them at once because, again, there's a lot of stuff in this one. So okay, so you can hear how that's like more boosted, right? All right, so the next two parts, hold on, let me just get through some of the basic drums. All right, so that's when the beat is going to come in. It's right over here. Hold on. So then we're going to have a kick. And on the kick, all that I had was a little bit of reverb. Not too much because reverb on kicks it doesn't always sound good. But I could work pretty good in this one, so I left it on. Just a hat. And some reverb. And the same stereo tool that we've talked about earlier with the guitar and with the hat. So yeah. And finally, just a snare. All I did to that is add reverb. This is a very spaced out track. That's why there's reverb on pretty much everything. So then one of the more like adjusted sounds that I have, like hold up. Look at all this. Look at all that. So that's how much stuff went onto this. So that's why I'm trying to get through this a little bit quicker. But the next part is this. That's the original. You can yeah, that's just on the guitar. I'm not good at recording bass, so I just took the guitar and recorded the bass line, and I figured I would adjust it to make it sound more like bass. So, and that's what I did. So next what I did is gonna go through these quick. Lo-fi and bass booster we'll put on two at a time. So lo-fi, again, it kind of distorts it and makes it a little bit louder. The distortion is pretty subtle depending on how low the level of what you're putting it on was in the beginning. If it's pretty low, you won't notice the distortion too much. And then I bass boosted it. This was how I was gonna begin trying to make it sound like a bass guitar. All right, you get the gist. So it's got some of those lower frequencies, but it hasn't really started to sound like a bass guitar yet. And then just another bass booster. Yeah, so just putting in a little bit more bass. All right. So the next that I had was an EQ. Now, if you look at this EQ, I was just cutting some of those high frequencies like the air and the space that I talked about with the guitar recordings because I didn't want this on the bass track. So I put that on. Now it's starting to kind of sound a little bit lower. All right, so you can hear that pretty good. Moving on. More lo-fi, we've already discussed that effect. A little bit of boost, a little bit of saturation in there. Then a low pass. So you put those two on and it sounds like this. Now because the levels were high enough already before I put on the lo-fi that time, now you can kind of start to hear the distortion, that I talked about. It doesn't show up when you're putting it on something with very low levels, but since this had higher levels by this time, it started to distort it a little bit. So then again, I put on another EQ. I was really trying to focus on this frequency for the bass. Didn't really care about that or that. Just basically focusing on one frequency for the bass so that I could cut it out of everything else so that the bass would have its own space to occupy. So then I put that on. I put on a bass booster. And it sounded like this. Now you see how it's occupying one, kind of frequency. A little bit hard to hear, but that's what it's doing. Is it's occupying that one frequency that I told it to occupy. So, next. The last two stuff, I guess I'll just put on the chorus first. So the chorus is because I just wanted to do something interesting with it. I think it sounds cool, and it also adds this kind of stereo effect, so it's kind of bouncing back and forth between ears. So I'll let you hear that one. And it kind of adds this pulsing dynamic to it. But yeah, so that sounded cool, I thought. And then finally, the last thing that I added there was a compressor. Kind of doing the same thing that we did with this one up here. It makes this stuff move with the volume. I'm not good at explaining compressors, but that's basically what it does. So then you put that on and it sounds like this. You can hear the compressor kind of clamping down at the beginning of it. But yeah, that's that. Also, once we get to this stage, because I'm going by stages, we've got this stage, this stage. Once you get to this stage, I also introduce that. Is that I think, yeah, it's just a clap. I put that on the second and fourth. Just added a reverb. I'm pretty sure that I just added a reverb to all the percussion. I don't think there was anything too special about that. The percussion in this track is just a bunch of reverb and a little bit more lo-fi sound selection. So then the next thing that I did, this was probably the most interesting, effect that I did in this video. Okay, so this one is just me strumming out, I believe, 2 chords. You can hear it. It's very quiet. It's definitely designed for a background, kind of a textural thing. So yeah, so then what I did with this, again, yeah. So there's a bit of modification. There's the chorus that I put on first. Gives it that stereo effect, kind of fills up a bit more space while still leaving it in the background with this recording specifically. Sorry. And then another thing that I added was just the reverb. Turn up the wet amount and the dry amount down, and the decay time. So this would really, it would get drawn out. You hear that? So the whole point of this was basically just to create a pad, you don't hear the individual playing of the notes anymore, you just hear the tone of it. And it's supposed to kind of just sit in the background of it. I did bring it a little bit forward though, because I thought it was a cool sound. But anyways, we added some vintage delay. We talked about that with, what was it? I think it was this guitar track. I could be wrong, but it was already on there. So remember, vintage delay is delay that's different in each ear. So there's a different time in each ear. But you turn that on. So there's a lot of stereo image and there is a lot of space being filled, but at the same time it's not really distracting you from the main melodies of it. That was the whole point of that. So then the drums just carry on, you reintroduce the bass. There's just a lot of structuring at this point. And then here, just to give you a little bit of context, I'm going to play it. Oh, sorry. So just to give you a little bit of context on what this piece is. Oh, I forgot to put on the reverb. There's a shaker there, guys. I forgot about that. The shaker has reverb. That's all there is to it. Yeah. Okay, you see how that sounds out of place? Because that's because I didn't put on the effects light. Yeah, so I wanted to use this as a transition. Now let me explain what I did to this. This is just a very modified sound. It doesn't sound anything like that in the final recording. So this is what it sounds like. Yeah. Again, it's from the J Dilla. It's just still saying yeah. Anyways, bunch of effects on here. So it sounded like a good transition in the end. Again, lo-fi, boost it, and if the level is high enough, it'll distort it. So now it's going to sound like scary. But yeah, so you got that. Then there's chorus. I wanted to use a lot of chorus with this. I just thought it was a cool effect. So 2 layers of chorus. Now it's going to sound like it's a little bit scary, a little bit weird. Then there's some reverb, kind of spacing it out. I turn up the decay time. So now it's got a lot more space to it. It is still very loud, and I wanted to cut down on that. But before I cut down on that, I decided it would be a better idea to add some vintage delay. Vintage delay, you remember what that is. I've explained it twice already. You should hopefully remember. Anyways. And then it echoes like that, and it kind of goes, and that's, I don't know, in a way a substitute for a cymbal. Well, I did have a crash in here. We'll get to that after this. But yeah, it's just a good transition for going into a different section of the song. And then basically the rest that I did was a compressor to compress it and an amplifier to put it back in the background where it was supposed to be originally. So now it sounds like this. Yeah, and that's it. I'm sorry if the mixing is really bad on this video. I don't really know. I'm still new to all of this, but yeah. So then the next part that I had was the crash just going into this. Doesn't really sound like it fits in with everything, but I wanted to use it, so I just put on a bunch of effects so it would fit in. Lo-fi, I've explained it. Reverb. Alright, so let's put that on, tell you how that sounds. It is loud, and it still does not fit in. So then what I did was I added high pass. Just to take out those lower frequencies, the kind of booming frequencies, because you don't want it to take the space where the bass takes up, you know. And then just an amplifier, more reverb. By the way, the amplifiers they're not there to make it louder, they're there to make it quieter. The reason that I put amplifiers on and instead of actually modifying this slide is because, how do I explain it? This slide goes before all the effects. So imagine this slide is in effect, it would be all the way up here. If I modified up here, it would not be affecting down there anymore. So anyways, I added another one just to put it all the way in the background, and it eventually sounds like this. Yeah, again, in the background. So then once it came back into this is kind of structured as the final chorus, but I also have this. Just some one-shots that I found, and this wasn't in the deli kit, this was just in a one-shot kit that I found. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I had to pitch shift it down because the guitar was out of tune. I'm sorry, but yeah. So then I just added some reverb. Pretty subtle reverb, but it kind of has a bit of a tail to it, a bit of a wash. So it still stays there. It's still prominent in the recording after the hit. Anyways, last part that I have, I'm pretty sure, is just for the final section of all this. Then all I did, I added reverb. Then I added a high pass. I just realized that I could add the effects while the sound is playing. I should have been doing this the whole time. I was not. I could have saved a lot of time doing that. Oh well, I'm just gonna... Yeah, I'm gonna play the full beat. So that's everything explained. I believe I've ran through everything on how I did all of this. I'm gonna show how it is structured because I haven't played it while it's structured yet. But yeah, if you like the video, please subscribe and like it. And if you have any recommendations for what you want me to do, just drop it in the comments. Otherwise, seeing as I don't have a ton of time at the moment, I'm just going to keep doing these pretty low quality tutorials on how I made beats. You know? Alright, that sound good? Alright, I guess I'll play the beat now. And I will turn it up in OBS so you can hear it. Get quieter so you can't hear me. Goodbye. yeah, that's the video. Please like and subscribe. I'm out. Peace.